Recognition, power, and influence is your birthright, and this podcast shows you how to get there. Welcome to episode number 273. Today's episode, I am honoring Equal Pay Day 2025 by giving you not only really practical negotiation strategies so that when you get the pay and recognition that you deserve, you have actual influence at your company. All right, let's get started.
Welcome to Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and I teach you how to get promoted, get paid, and bring your whole self to the leadership table. I am on a mission to change organizations from the C-suite out because women are the new face of leadership, and we are doing it on our terms.
Hello, corporate badass. Welcome to another episode of Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and super excited, as always, to be here with you again this week. So today's episode is in honor of Equal Pay Day 2025, and I am so excited to share with you all of the tips and tools that I know about getting the equal pay that you rightfully deserve, that you're already set up to achieve at your organization or outside of your organization. And there are a lot of very simple tools and tricks and things that you can say out loud that you can begin to negotiate those higher level salaries for yourself. It doesn't actually need to be all that complicated. But as we know with everything in life, yes, of course, it is complicated, in the sense that we can get a higher salary, we can get higher titles, but we can still hate our job. We can leave after just a few months of being in that job. Maybe you've been there before where you've raised your hand or you've doubled your salary and then you ended up leaving that organization. And so I really want to make sure that not only are you getting those higher salaries and you're getting those higher titles, but that you really have that influence and that actual authority at your organization that you really, really crave and really want at your company. And I think for a lot of you listening who currently feel undervalued and also underpaid, the undervalued part tends to outweigh the underpaid part. And we sort of diminish. We're like, if I could just be happy, if I could just work remotely, if I could just not have to travel all the time, if I had less stress, I don't even care about the money. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And then you're like, well, yeah, of course I care about the money. I need the money for my family. And I also want to have more money and I deserve to have more money. And so there ends up being this push-pull that you have going on at any given time as you continue to even think or contemplate advancing your career. So I want to take a step back in time and share with you a little bit about my journey with this concept of getting paid more money. I often say hashtag show me the money because it really is important for us as women to have conversations around money and to understand how to negotiate and get more money and get the pay and the recognition that we already deserve. And we also need to know what we're getting into so that as we continue to get promoted and continue to make more money, that we can manage our emotions and our mindset and our lifestyle around what is actually happening for us. So we're going to talk about both of those things in today's episode. The first stop, when I said we're going to go back in time, is when I was working for a women's leadership organization in Silicon Valley. That was my first job coming out. Many of you have heard the story. That was my first coaching gig, and I absolutely loved the work that I did with this organization, and we were able to impact a lot of women's lives. One of the challenges that we faced is that it was a corporate-sponsored program, so you may or may not know this, but pretty much every woman that I work with pays out of pocket for the coaching that I give them and the work that they do with me. And if they do get sponsored by their organization, that they're still putting it on their own corporate credit card. And this matters because in this particular case, this was a corporate sponsored program. And so a lot of the women didn't feel empowered to go back. So they were sponsored to take this program. And then they actually felt disempowered to go in and ask for a raise as a result of taking this program. So it was actually very counterproductive. So if you have found yourself in this situation where you've had an executive coach that was sponsored by your organization and yeah, they made you a better manager, quote unquote, but they weren't actually able to help you get that actual influence or those higher titles or more pay that you deserved. Well, it's actually, of course not, because they're paid by the company. So why would that coach help you make more money at that company, right? It's like counterproductive. And there's very few organizations that can actually say that they're committed wholeheartedly, no matter what, to paying their employees equal pay. And especially in 2025 in the United States of America, we're not hearing a lot of that talk right now. So I want to go back to that time because there was the one challenge, which is that it was a corporate sponsored program. But then the other challenge is that the emphasis in this program was not in higher titles and making more money. It was in female empowerment, I would say, and community of these women. And that was incredibly, incredibly important. And it was valuable. And a lot of the women really found a lot of joy in this process. But I was starting to get frustrated because these incredibly powerful, as I call them now, corporate badasses had really shitty titles and were way overqualified for the amount of money that they were making. So I, took my own personal badassery and started my business and decided that I was going to help women make more money and get higher titles. That was the whole premise of my business. And in turn, I was going to double the number of women in the C-suite. So I was going to help more women make more money, get higher titles, and then we were going to see a shift in women in leadership. And that's what I did. In the first 6 months of starting my coaching business, I had 3 women promoted to the C-suite. I coached them on very specific negotiation tools and communication strategies so that they could actually put together a plan for their next promotion. And then really thinking about their career long term, what they wanted out of their career, how they wanted to show up at work, and, essentially show me the money. Was able to give them these tools. I also have this really incredible resource, and I recorded a whole podcast episode on salary negotiation that I'll link to in the show notes as well. So definitely click on that where you can begin to have that conversation right away with your human resources department on level setting your salary, how you can begin to get that higher salary, how you can single-handedly through one single, very actually simple conversation to level set your salary, to create your own equal pay, to bridge that gap. And you can do that for yourself tomorrow. But in today's episode, I want to talk about what it is that is happening for us as we start to get these higher titles and higher pay, and then why we're not even able to talk about it. And this is so profound, is that I coach women to get promoted. People will hire me. And then they'll even say, like, I don't want it to all be about the promotion. Like, I really want to have a voice. I really want influence. I want to make sure I'm making a difference at my company. It's not just about the promotion. And this matters because if you are one of those women who it isn't just about the promotion, I think nobody listening to this podcast it's just about the title or it's just about the promotion. Yet I have women who are very focused on getting a promotion, getting equal or above equal pay, who are actively getting promoted to the C-suite. So do you think that those women are only fixated on the title? They're so different than you. All they care about is the title, but I don't just care about the title. But then yet you hire me as your promotion coach to help you negotiate higher salaries and get a promotion. But I don't just care about the title. And I think that the reason why I'm pointing this like push-pull that we have is pointing this out to you because this is how we all feel. This is normal. This is actually why women are so profound in higher level leadership positions is because we get that idea of both. we know that a title isn't everything, that just because we have authority over people because of our title, then that makes us worthy somehow. We have to find our own self-worth. We have to figure out and discover ourselves along the way. I don't think there could be anybody listening to this podcast episode who doesn't think otherwise. And I have had women actually negotiate and ask for double their salary, adding several $100,000 to their salary, and still believe that their biggest contribution and value to their organization are their ideas, is what they bring to the table, not their high salary or their high title. But we can have both. And it's important for you to begin thinking about this as a both situation. And so a lot of times when I'm coaching clients about promotion or salary negotiations, I'm keeping the negotiation actually super simple. So typically speaking, if you are going to negotiate your salary, it's actually a simple ask to human resources to say, hey, can we have a conversation about level setting my salary? And then if human resources says no, then conversation's over, right? And that also tells you a lot about their ability and what they care about, at their organization. And so you want to keep these asks and this desire to get, even just to ask your boss, what would it take to become a vice president at this company? You want to keep those asks incredibly simple, because it's a two-way conversation and you want to get feedback. You want to see if it's even possible to level set your salary. You want to see if it's even possible for you to ever become a vice president at this company. You want to see if your boss even has a clue as to what it would take to get to that next level of leadership. And then you build out the conversation from there. So the actual promotion and salary conversations are just really kind of simple. They're not that complicated. They don't require a lot of pumping myself up or mindset work. It's just a simple ask and you just do it. So then what is all the other work that I do with clients, right? If it's I don't know, have you asked human resources if they could level set your salary? It's not that complicated. And they're like, no, I haven't. Or oh, that's such a good idea. I'll do that. I have people literally who've watched my Instagram video on level setting your salary, go do it, and then come back and they instant message me they got $25,000 extra. That can literally be it. It's not that complicated. You don't have to overcome imposter syndrome to get there. Just ask the question and go for it. So if it were that simple, then wouldn't we all have equal pay? Wouldn't we be able to get promoted into those higher level leadership positions? The answer is no, because it's an and approach, A and D. And so back when I was coaching in women's leadership or women's empowerment, so to speak, we were forgetting that titles matter and that raises matter and that we need to make more money at our organizations, and that it's okay for us to admit that we're the breadwinner at our company. It's also okay for us to get promoted and still take Fridays off. It's also okay for us to get promoted and not travel to headquarters on a plane every single week. It's also possible for us, and not only possible, but it's available to us to get promoted while we're on maternity leave. This is what my clients are currently doing. All of this is available to us in the and approach. And we need to make sure that we're basically getting over ourselves and empowering ourselves to have those conversations, to work on our mindset and our thought process that even keeps us back from saying, yeah, I want to work for you someday. Yeah, I want to get promoted. Let's create a real concrete promotion plan. Show me the money. So all of the mindset work that takes us up until that point of being able to schedule the call with human resources is kind of the other work. It's the whole point of this podcast. It's the work that says, hey, not only am I going to get that extra pay, but I'm going to enjoy my job once I get there. I'm going to love the work that I'm doing. I'm going to have real influence at my organization. So let me give you an example. So while you're working on your promotion path with your boss, you might also want to be building allies across your organization. So you might want to be doing 15-minute ally meetings. Now, part of your promotion plan with your boss is going to include exposure and also buy-in from senior stakeholders at the organization. Because in order for you to be successful at that VP level or above, then you're going to need to have more influence at the top. So you're going to be doing the direct ask, hey, boss, can I get promoted? But then you're also going to be backing it up by building those relationships and getting that exposure to senior executive leaders. Another requirement of higher level executive positions, if you want to really have influence, is you need to learn how to tailor your conversations to your audience. And I think most women that I speak with are actually incredibly wrong. So they'll go into a conversation, say, with their CEO, and I have a woman who's at the director level who's regularly having conversations with her CEO, and she is shocked by the actual subject matter of what they're discussing in these conversations. So the reason why she was so terrified to reach out to her CEO in the first place is because she thought that she would have to be really, really on it at all times. Like, he could ask her a question that she wouldn't know the answer to, or God forbid, I think her first call with her CEO, she was putting together an actual PowerPoint presentation to show him. And I was like, no, don't do that. So a lot of you are thinking that the higher up they go, the more you have to prove yourself, when in actuality, the opposite is true. So the higher up you go, you need to talk to them like human beings while still valuing their time. You have to get to the point. You have to be incredibly discerning. You have to make sure that you understand what's in it for them. You have to make sure that those conversations are valuable. But you talking about the work that you're doing and how smart you are is none of those things. It's not ever usually the answer at those higher executive levels. And so when you can begin to walk the talk and show your boss while you're just having the direct ask, what's it going to take to make me vice president? Or I had one woman that was like, she started her job and she said to her boss, I want to get the highest level bonus I can possibly get in October. I want to get above the highest level bonus. So between now and then, I want to have conversations with you about how we can make that happen. And so between now and then, she was having regular conversations. But what is the actual how she was going to make that happen was having more influence, being able to participate in those higher level conversations at her organization. But she also, and capital A and D, had to make the ask to begin with. She had to actually say, hey, I want to make more money, but I'm also going to walk the talk. I'm also going to back it up. So this is, like I said, the coaching happens on the in-between. Is how do we back it up? How do we talk to our CEO? How do we have these conversations? The actual ask is pretty simple. Hey, human resource person, can we talk about level setting my salary? And they're like, no. Or, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's talk about it. But then in the meantime, in order for you to have success once you get there, you have to be building those relationships and building your executive communication skills to the point that makes it a no-brainer, so that you actually feel empowered, so to speak, once you get to that level and that position. So this is how I personally am single-handedly closing the gender pay gap, how I'm creating more equal pay at organizations everywhere for every single one of my clients, is because on the daily, we're working how to advance their executive presence, how to have stronger and more powerful influence at their organizations, while also getting the pay and the higher titles that they most definitely deserve. So knowing how to have those direct asks, in addition to having actual influence at your company, is the sweet spot. That's everything. That's the making the show me the money work. Let me give you an opposite example of somebody who was very, very well respected at her company. And for the third time, she received an award. Every single year, she would receive this award. And in the year that she was working with me, and we're laughing about it because she got a trip to Greece. She received this award, and they were like, "We honor you as a woman of color at our organization. We're giving you a trip to Greece." And she was like, "Okay." And she said, "Thank you," of course. And then she came to me. She's like, "Screw that. I don't want your trip to Greece. I want a promotion. I want more pay. I don't care about your trip to Greece." And so then we came up with another hashtag, which was no kudos, thank you. And so for a lot of women, they can have influence up until a point where people really like them. They very much value the work that they're doing. But if you are that person who is drastically underpaid, who isn't at the title that they should be at, when people who are above you, 2 or 3 levels above you, don't have nearly the ideas and the influence that you really have at your organization, there is something off. And you have to figure that out. And maybe it's a direct ask, like, "Hey, can we talk about level setting my salary?" And more likely, it's both. You have to up level your skills at that higher executive level and ask for the pay and titles that you deserve. So that is my gift to you this Equal Pay Day 2025. I want you to schedule that meeting with Human Resources about level setting your salary if you haven't already. I want you to ask your boss what it's going to take to get promoted in 2025. And I want you to start improving and up-leveling your executive communication skills. I want you to start building relationships all across your organization. I want you to begin deliberately managing your career so that you can have both all of that recognition, power, and influence that is, in fact, your birthright. You deserve it. You are ready. And I'm so, so thankful that you are on this journey with me so that I can help you get there. All right. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Before you go, I have a question for you. Do you know how close you are to your next promotion? Really? Not what your boss has told you, not what you even believe to be true, but have you actually taken the time to sit down, take an assessment, review the 5 categories that it takes to get promoted into senior executive leadership positions and decided where you fall in each category and given yourself a ranking on a scale of 1 to 10 of how close you are to getting your next promotion? Have you done this? Well, now's your chance. If that feels interesting to you and you're like, "Hey, I want to know exactly how close I might actually be or how far away you might be and what it's going to take to get you even closer," then I invite you to take my promotability quiz. This is a quiz that I put together with practical tips that actually tell you where you're lacking and where you're winning. What are the areas that you actually need to improve and not necessarily what your boss is telling you all the time so that you can take concrete steps towards landing that next promotion and changing the face of the leadership table. Go to yourpromotabilityscore.com to take your free assessment today.